Welcome back, everybody, to the Salisbury Organist's car with my friend and brother Billy beside me. The other day I found a church which was both incredibly ancient in the heart of Dorset, but simultaneously refreshingly and strikingly modern and timeless. And our task today is to represent that incredible contrast in music. Welcome to an old-fashioned road trip of a very modern kind. With the sun shining, I'm journeying back into Dorset, with Billy, who brings his guitar. We're driving to one of the county's finest village churches, a building which rose triumphantly from ruins, rebuilt in majestic fashion to become a seamless blend of the old and the new. It's a church I can't wait to show you, and where we hope to perform a very unique duet of our own. Welcome, friends, to one of the great gems of the Dorset countryside. I'm so grateful to Billy for coming with me today, but I've just sent him off to have a look around the churchyard because it's so spectacular here. We're right in the centre of Dorset, and this has got to be one of the very best village churches in the area. This is St Mary's Church in Morden. Sometimes it's difficult to actually leave the outdoors behind. But let's take a look inside this church. And the reason why this place is so special is because it's a strange juxtaposition between the ancient and the modern. I mean modern both because it's light and bright and airy, but also because this is mainly a Victorian church. The story behind it is best described here, in this north window, and this model of the old St Mary's Church. This is fantastic. It says here, this is a scale model of the old church which was partially demolished in 1873. From this we can see that the old church was a more squat construction than the new one. The tower was much lower than this new church, and there was a musician's gallery in the west nave. By about 1850 to 60, the building was in a dire state of repair, and it became unusable, and most of it was demolished. By 1872, having suffered from neglect and lack of maintenance, with a previously absentee vicar, the musicians' gallery at the West End had become unsafe, and the chancel was unusable. And there is an enormous insect trying its best to get out of this window. I'm slightly unnerved by that because it's not a wasp, it's a hornet. But I'll continue my spiel nonetheless. The old church was demolished except for the lower part of the tower and the Norman buttresses, and a new church was paid for by Sarah Frances Elizabeth Drax of the nearby Charborough estate. And the church was reopened in 1873. So what we see here is mainly a Victorian church, but it's been beautifully restored. Absolutely stunning. It's one of the most impressive buildings that I've ever discovered and that I've ever been able to show you. This is, of course, a religious building, but in some ways, it almost seems like the interior of a grand country house. That's probably because the person who built the new church was actually the builder for Charborough Park, whose name was Joseph Sellers. And perhaps that's why it's a slightly different style and a different atmosphere compared to many of the churches I visit. To me, the most amazing features here are at the very back, where the old musicians' gallery would have been. And once again, I needn't say anything more than to read what is written underneath this impressive and almost life-size knight monument here. It says, "Here lieth buried the body of Thomas Earl, the son of Walter Earl, who departed from this life, the 16th day of March, in the year of our Lord, 1597. Just look at that again. And think about what day it is if you are watching this on a Sunday. It's the 16th of March. Now that is an incredible coincidence. This gentleman died exactly 428 years ago. And that's what I mean by a juxtaposition between the ancient and the modern. And to the left, we have a memorial to his children who predeceased him. His sons were 4, his daughters 2, of whom John, Thomas, and Dorothy are deceased. And remaineth now living Walter, Christopher, and Elizabeth. And the figures of John, Thomas, and Dorothy are at the top here. We are looking directly into the faces of those from the past. And those faces used to sit behind the altar here in the chancel, which is incredibly imposing. It's like a whole new building in some ways, and it's been screened off as such because here by the chancel arch we actually have a curtain, which is a very rare feature. It probably derives from a time when you'd like to keep the chancel warmer, perhaps, for evensong. A remarkable building. A very positive and friendly building as well, isn't it? And it's beautifully kept. Look at the floor and the pews in the nave here. Now this is a very grand instrument, both in size and in colour scheme. This is an organ I've not had the pleasure to play before, so I don't know what it's capable of. It was built by G. Maley, organ builder of London. I've never heard of that organ builder before. A complete unknown. Does that affect the quality of the sound? Perhaps. We'll find out. But it's clearly been well looked after. And we have the 2 keyboards. Stops on the right are for the lower keyboard, and on the left are for the upper. The most intriguing stop is by far the cornopian. Very rare on village church organs. It's a loud version of an oboe, almost like a trumpet. Now that Billy's back in the building with me and we've safely rehomed the Wasp, I was told off for calling it a hornet because apparently it is just a mere wasp. We can now play the organ here, and I have some particular inspiration for this programme today, and that is those memorials at the back of the church. My thinking is to play music entirely from the 1500s, some of the greatest melodies from the 1500s, and it looks like this organ will do a fantastic job of those pieces. I've never played this organ before, and I can make some very quick opinions on certain aspects of the instrument, the first of which you can hear. It has a really creaky bench, which is a problem because it makes a lot of noise if you move too much, and when you're playing the pedals on the organ, you do need to pivot. I always say that every time you play a new organ, you have to relearn your organ playing technique because they're all completely different. Otherwise, this looks fantastic. I played 2 notes on the open diapason, and that's all we need to know. A fantastic sound in a fantastic acoustic. Here the organ is quite brash sounding, but out in the church I'm sure it will sound lovely, and I've switched the microphone on down in the nave so that we can hear these sounds at their most subtle. That's the cornopian, which is still quite bold. There's also a 15th, which is almost like bird song. That's a lovely sound. And then the swell has an open diapason too. Sorry you can't see the keys while I'm playing them, but that is the problem with self-filming. Even when your brother's here. So let's play some music from the 1500s, and we must begin with a hymn. And this is to a melody very famously by Tallis, Tallis's Canon.
Of all the village church organs I've played, this one is perhaps the most surprising. At the console, this is a noisy machine with heavy stops and a creaky pedalboard and bench. But the sound from the nave is excellent. Rarely is an organ so well crafted that even its quietest sounds can be heard clearly over the mechanics. So this is the opportunity to show them off. All that's needed is a soaring soloist. John Dowland's Pavane is one of those rare and timeless classics, a melancholy masterpiece. It's unthinkable that it was published a year before Thomas Earl was laid to rest. Billy is using an electric bow, which vibrates the strings without him having to touch them. It works a little bit like the bow of a violin or a cello, producing a smooth, expressive sound which complements the grounded accompaniment of the organ. This is exactly the same kind of contrast which we hear in a duet with a singer, especially in the most beautiful ancient music, plainsong.
we think of pipe organs as original, and any more modern instrument as the imposter. And yet, it was the pipe organ and the harmonium which swept away a much older tradition of West Gallery music. And just to add to the contradiction, those pipe organs which were once pumped by choir boys are now powered by electric blowers. And all of this against the backdrop of the simple fact that we owe the survival of many of our village churches, just like St Mary's, to the foresight and, in some ways, destructiveness of Victorian restorers. What's the moral of the story? Well, I suppose it's that you should never be afraid of electrifying the classics. If you're enjoying my programme today, please do consider leaving a small donation to help us out. I'm really grateful to Billy for coming along with me for this trip and for the hours we spent rehearsing the music. I always want to keep these videos free for everybody to watch, and they're always produced in the spirit of maintaining and perpetuating interest in these amazing old churches. If you'd like to help support me, you can leave a donation using PayPal. If you look underneath the video in the video description, you'll find the link there. Click on that and it takes you to my PayPal page, where you can leave a donation if you're enjoying my tours and my music. It's integral in keeping me on the road, so thank you so much for your help in advance. I truly appreciate it. I'd like to end with a grand finale back here in Salisbury at St Martin's Church. One of my all-time favourite organs playing one of my all-time favourite Lent hymns, and you'll all know it. One final thing to say, please pause this video now to click on the subscribe button. Super, super important. Doesn't cost a penny. Make sure you are part of the Salisbury Organist community and you won't miss a future video. Thank you so much. See you next time.